So Boxing Scene are reporting that Eddie Hearn has made an offer to Joshua Buatsi to fight the WBA light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol. I'll leave a link to this article in the description box in case you want to read it for yourself. It's not particularly long, but you know, it's interesting. Hearn makes some quotes at the bottom of the article. It says, "We want Buatsi to fight Bivol. We've made an offer now to Buatsi to fight Bivol, which we want to make sure he's happy with, and hopefully we can make the fight. It's not done yet, it's not signed, but we're seeing if we can make the numbers work." Interesting little development. This is a good prospective fight in my opinion. Dmitry Bivol, the WBA champion, he's seen as kind of joint number one light heavyweight in the division because of course it's between him and Beterbiev. They haven't fought each other yet, so it's still up in the air who's the best. But from what I've seen, the boxing public seem to favour Dmitry Bivol ever so slightly. And I tend to agree. I think if that fight happens, Bivol versus Beterbiev, or Beterbiev versus Bivol, whichever way you want to word it, I do favour Bivol just slightly. Just slightly. And that's of now. I could change my mind, but most people see Bivol as the number one. But also with Joshua Buatsi, he hasn't yet fought for a title, but he's kind of seen as the number one contender, the contender at light heavyweight that most people have, or people have the most confidence in winning a title. So personally, I think this is a good high quality fight, and I'd be more than happy if it got made next. In the second paragraph of this article, it says Buatsi is ranked at the number 2 contender with the WBA. So yes, it's a reasonable fight by ranking standards. And this is what I take issue with though, because the paragraph goes on to say, so Buatsi claims he was ready to face Bivol after a dominant win over Craig Richards in May. I'm not sure I agree with that, because just to rewind to that fight, I had Joshua Buatsi winning. I had him beating Craig Richards by 2 rounds. And I think most people, most objective observers who watched that fight would agree that that was not a dominant win. It was a good win because Buatsi had to come through some adversity, and it was a very closely contested fight, but it was far from dominant. Buatsi, as I say, won that fight by a couple of rounds, but many people felt like Craig Richards was hard done by. Personally, I think it's maybe a little bit of a stretch to give Richards the nod in that fight, but a draw wouldn't have surprised me. So yeah, that was a narrow victory for Joshua Buatsi. And so that's one thing that if I'm looking at this prospective Bivol fight for Joshua Buatsi and I'm a member of Buatsi's management team, personally I'd want to see him have 1 or 2 more learning fights just to add some more wrinkles to his game, because Joshua Buatsi seems to be very much on that learning curve still. I think that's been shown in the Kalic and the Richards fight, where he's just had to come through some adversity, as I say. He's had some rough moments, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's those rough moments that you learn from. Those provide the best learning opportunities, and Buatsi, to his credit, has come through those moments where he's been hurt and he's potentially been down on the scorecards. But see, the thing is with Kalic and Richards, they managed to hurt Buatsi, but they're of a certain caliber where they can only follow up with so much. Whereas you have to imagine fighters the caliber of Bivol, if they hurt Joshua Buatsi and they sense that he's maybe there for the taking, they're going to do a better job of maybe getting the finish. And so that's my primary concern when it comes to Joshua Buatsi fighting the champions or the higher level contenders, is how well can he deal with a crisis? But then that's like the main concern. I think also with Buatsi, he can be quite stationary. So if we get into a kind of stylistic comparison of Bivol and Buatsi, you know, at long range, Bivol is super active and he's super accurate, and he has such good control of the fight at long range. You know, he moves so well in and out and to the side. His straight shots are just so accurate and so consistent. Whereas Buatsi can be quite stationary at long range, doesn't have the most amount of head movement. I think the variation on his shots isn't always there, and sometimes he can be a little bit deliberate with his long range boxing. And and he doesn't have the most consistent work rate throughout the course of a fight, which maybe some people have accused him of having stamina issues. Personally, I think it's just maybe he struggles to manage his stamina, which is something that really comes with experience, because he really has only had 2 meaningful competitive fights in the Kalic and the Richards fights. Bivol, on the other hand, he's been fighting a higher level of opposition, and for a long time as well. So Bivol's, I think he's really reaching the peak of his powers right now, and he's obviously coming off a massive win against Canelo Alvarez, who, yes, stylistically is different to Buatsi, but I think Bivol's ability would see him through in a fight against Buatsi, and I could imagine him being able to tame Buatsi, who's a very tenacious and very physical fighter. So physical to the point where it almost gets a bit dirty, and he starts to bend the rules quite a bit. And I just think Bivol would be able to outbox him at this point and get probably a comfortable points win over Buatsi. But nevertheless, I do think it's a very high quality fight, and if it gets made next, I'm more than happy, to be honest. As I say, if I'm looking at it from the perspective of, Joshua Buatsi team member, I'd say maybe at least one more fight, just to really expose yourself to the higher level opposition, and as I say, get some more wrinkles to your game, just in case there's a crisis and you have to see out some rough moments. So yeah, I think it's an interesting fight. I think it's a very good fight. What do you think? Just leave it in the comment section below. I imagine if this fight does get made, it would probably take place in London, which I think is a good thing. Joshua Buatsi's hometown, because Bivol, he's not afraid to travel and fight guys in their backyard. He's done it quite a few times. Fights on the road, and so yeah, if it gets made, if it happens next rather, still seems like there's some stuff that has to be sorted out. But both these guys, they're warriors. They're after the pot of gold. So yeah, that's all I've got to say on this fight for now. What do you think? Leave it down below. Do you think this fight happens next? And if so, who do you pick to win? Do you, like me, favour the champion, Dmitry Bivol, or do you think Joshua Buatsi is about to come into his own and take that title away? Leave it down there. I'll get back to you. And thanks, as always, for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.